are off. Great. Welcome tonight to the Small Business Masterminds Foundation webinar about how to become a time management ninja. And what it's going to look like tonight is that we're going to go first through a whole heap of stuff. I'm literally going to try and cram your brain full of all the stuff that I have to share, because I love this topic. Our ideas are like our children. Our own are always the most special. So, I get excited about this stuff. Feel free to fire me. But in a moment, I'll tell you what you can expect and what we'll cover. And at the end of the webinar, I'm going to make you an offer to take some next steps if that's what you want to do. And so general comment before we go on. It's been proven time and time again that passively sitting and listening to this kind of stuff means you're going to forget 90% of what you've heard in less than a week. So if you want to get as much return on in your investment of time in being on this webinar today, then you need to participate. And the best way to know that you're participating, to be focused, is by working through the worksheets that I've given you a link to in your invitations before. And also, if you haven't got it, like I said before, at the top of the chat screen there's the link to download. Follow along on the worksheet, put up your hand, ask questions. Above all, ask questions via the chat window at the bottom left. I'm going to keep you all on mute unless there's a particularly good reason to do so differently. But at the moment I take people off mute, what happens is that we can very easily lose control of the environment and the technology until we have much better broadband in this country. And that'll happen anytime soon now, I'm sure, and not. Until we have better broadband connections, it's much better if we just interact via you asking questions in the chat window, typing it in, and then I'll respond to those. As I said, we're recording, so the recording will be accessible in the next 24 hours, and you'll get an email to that effect. And please don't do any of these. If you're going to get distracted by any of this stuff, or many other varieties of social media or email or mobile phones or whatever, you're not going to get value from this webinar. It's just not going to happen. Multitasking is a myth, truly. This is what we're going through today. We're going to check in with where you are on this topic, and then we're going to talk about that time management is big business. Story of Darren, talk about the story of Darren and lessons from Darren. I'm going to talk to you about the two big questions, my own story, lessons from that, more stuff about other reasons for procrastination, and I'll tell you how to take some next steps with me, including supporting a great charity if that's of interest to you. And finally, we'll take action, because nothing's ever going to change until and unless we take action. And for those of you who don't know me, this is me. I'm Roland Hennekert, business coach, mentor. I help business owners feel great about themselves and about their business, because I make business fun and help you build a business that sustains you for years to come. And I am also the author of the 10 Truths for Business Owners books. The 10 Truths trilogy, business books for business owners, business books for people who don't read business books but should. And today's webinar is about a topic that's sort of woven throughout all three of my books, as well as through all three of my books. And sorry, something went wrong there. But the question: how do we best make use of our time, most efficient use and effective use of our time, and feel great about that? This is what I want you to achieve today. This is what I want you to take away from attending here. I want you to walk away enthusiastically and with at least one action that you're committed to taking around using your time better and feeling better about how you use your time. And I want you to all leave away with greater appreciation about how important it is to be great at what you do as well as to be great at running your business, and how you can become a business owner rather than just a business doer, because a lot of us are like that, right? We are great tradespeople or professionals, and we know a lot about our profession or our trade, but to be a great small business owner and to build a fun business that sustains you for years to come, you have to have a solid understanding of all the key aspects of developing your business, not just your profession or trade. And so these are the key aspects that I see as making up fun in business. Vision and purpose, planning, strategic setting, thinking and goal setting, numbers, taking control of your business, measurement, financial measurement and profit, marketing, customers, sales, systemization, innovation, quality assurance, whatever you want to call that. People, of course, your staff, leadership, you in other words, and finally something I call the rhythm of business, or predictability. And it feels a bit like that, doesn't it? It's all a bit too much, overwhelming and daunting. That's what I'm on this earth to help you with, to help you feel less overwhelmed and less daunted. And that's what we want to do today. And that's what I try and do in everything that I do with my clients and people I support. So before we go on, go to your worksheet. And on the second page, of your worksheet, you'll see a question with some space underneath it. And the question is, right now, this coming month, what is the biggest challenge you face in your business? What is the one thing that keeps you awake most? So take a moment to write the answer to that question. What is the biggest challenge that keeps you awake, the most pressing issue? What is it? And write it down on that worksheet. And I'm going to give you a moment of silence. Welcome those of you who just joined. The question I've just asked everyone is to focus on what is your most pressing issue? What is the one thing that keeps you awake most right now? And write it down on page 2 of your worksheet, or if you haven't downloaded the worksheet yet, on a spare piece of paper. What is your biggest challenge? And once you've written that down, ask yourself the next question. What do you want to get from being here tonight? What do you want to get? What do you want to take away? What outcome do you want to get from being here tonight? And write that down on the same page. What do you need to achieve? What do you need to get? What do you need to hear? What do you need to do so that when you leave from this webinar, you go, that was good. I'm glad I did that. So let's start by putting us on the page. And we'll do a poll. Let me just load it up. Right. This is also, I think, on page 3 of your worksheets, this poll. The question is this: thinking about my time management and how efficient I am, I feel ashamed because I waste enormous amounts of time. I'm the world's worst procrastinator. I'm a professor of procrastination, as a matter of fact, a lazy, undisciplined, and inefficient slob. Or B, I'm frustrated because I know I'm holding my business back because I procrastinate and I get distracted a lot. C, I'm confused because some days I'm like a machine. Everything just flows, and other days I get nothing done. D, all of the above. It just depends on which day you ask me. Or E, I'm inspired and excited. My days always just fly by. I seem to be in the zone all the time. I have time to do everything I want. I'm writing a book about becoming a time management ninja myself. Can I get you all to vote on one of those 5 options? Pick one of them, and I'll give you another moment to think about that. A, ashamed B, annoyed and frustrated. C, confused. Or D, all of the above. Great. Good. Thank you. Thank you. And I think we've probably just about got everyone now. Right. Yes. And so numbers come back, and most people actually did got one E. So we've got one time management ninja on our call. That's fantastic. Lovely. Somebody was confused. A couple of people were confused, and actually most people picked D. I mean, it's a mixture of all of the ones before, and it's how it normally is, right? That's what my normal expectation of it is. It's what I normally get. Let me just close this. That's not the answer. The results I normally get when I talk to people about time management. Most small business owners do feel annoyed and confused, or all of them at once at some point or other, because we're all great technicians and great carpenters and great architects or great web developers or great mortgage brokers or great writers or real estate agents, but none of us ever went to time management school, right? I mean, who taught you how to become efficient? Well, nobody really did. We just got to try and suck it and see. And so we tend to feel a bit like that. Anybody know what that's from? Monty Python and the Life of Brian. So we feel frustrated and annoyed because, you don't get the things done you want to get done sometimes, and you give yourself a hard time. You get to the end of the day and the mountain of stuff on your to-do list, it's just as big as it was at the beginning of the day, or sometimes it even grows. The inbox grows and just more stuff. And it's not that you don't know what you ought to be doing to move your business forward. It's just he's not going to say he's just a naughty boy. Yeah, exactly. That's probably what she's saying there. It's not that you don't know what you should be doing to move your business forward. It's just that you just don't have the time to do them because you're always running around managing crises and extinguishing brush fires. And even if you do find some time to do the business development stuff, you waste half a day procrastinating and getting distracted by stuff that doesn't matter. And so in the meantime, there's always another crisis to manage somewhere. You run around from employee crisis to client crisis to supplier crisis to compliance crisis to cash crisis, and all the way back to the beginning. So you're always behind. And what this leads to is that you know that you should spend more time doing the business development instead of being in the business. After all, everyone always tells you so, and hence you feel inadequate, not good enough as a business owner, somehow not cutting it as a business owner. And what's worse in a way is this, that everyone who always tells you that you should be doing more working on the business, everyone is actually right. You simply cannot build a fun, healthy, sustainable business by being in the business, by managing crises and swinging the hammer, as it were, all the time. You really won't. Developing a business that sustains you for years to come takes dedicated focus on being an effective business owner as opposed to a business doer. And so the business stagnates, you feel frustrated and overwhelmed, and that's not a great set of outcomes. So let's get into it. I'm going to tell you a few stories. Time management is a big topic. Human beings love giving themselves lack of efficiency, love beating ourselves up. Experience are the hardest on themselves. I often say to explain people on the planet, even worse than Catholics. Every client I have ever started working with, literally nearly everyone, will at some stage early on in our engagement confess to me that they're truly the world's worst procrastinator and lazy slop, and that they specifically want me to get really tough with them because they deserve to feel the impact of my size 13 boots on their backside. And I do have size 13 boots. But I think that time management is actually only exceeded by dieting as a favorite motivation for self-flagellation and castigation. Time management, like dieting, is big business. In researching this topic a while ago, I went to Amazon and typed in time management books. And I found that there was more than 20,000 titles in Amazon with time management as a category. You know, titles such as Time Warrior, Eat That Frog, Getting Things Done, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and now there's an 8th habit as well, The 4-Hour Work Week, etc., etc., etc. There's some of the titles. And what's especially amazing is that all 20,000 time management books make a solemn promise that within the covers of this amazing book is a unique and proven method to take you from being a slob to being a time management ninja master of efficiency. And that's pretty amazing, really. Which of those unique and proven methods works best? And if you pick the wrong one of these 20,000 unique and proven methods, if you pick the wrong one, does that mean that you're going to be wasting more time? So I myself got in the act on some time ago as well. I welcome those of you who just joined, Paul and someone else I can't see a name for. Welcome. We've only just got underway, so enjoy. Download the worksheets if you haven't done so already. You see the link at the top of the chat window, tiny.cc timeout page. So I got in on the act myself as well because, you know, we're on a good. I designed my own unique and proven time management methods. It was all based on the concept of juggling balls and making sure the balls wouldn't hit the floor. It involved a whiteboard and different coloured stickies that could be moved around the board. It was brilliant. Look, I won't beat around the bush. There's no other way to say it. It was a brilliant method. My method of time management was going to change the face of modern business. But, you know, when all is said and done, I have to actually admit that really it was just another approach to managing your to-do lists. And that's the deal, see? All of the 20,000 titles on Amazon, as well as my own brilliant method, unique and proven method, fall into two camps. Because firstly, there are the many variations on working with to-do lists. And some of those involve a perpetual list, others involve a new list every day or every week. Some list methods tell you to divide your task in 3 or 4 or 6 different categories, and others suggest that you just dump every action, no matter how small or large, in the same list. Some ask you to filter out the most important tasks and do them first. Others suggest you do the one you like least first, etc., etc., etc. And the second approach revolves around varying ways to manage your diary and your day. And some tell you to keep lots of blank space in your diary. Some direct you to plan your day in 10-minute blocks, and others to ask you to just stick the big rocks in your diary, etc. When was this? This would have been about 2007, I think, maybe 2008. I worked very briefly for a specialist time management consultancy in the city here in Sydney. And we consulted to corporate clients in the CBD. And the consultancy revolved around some specific, unique and proven IP that we taught to the clients. And the IP actually largely consisted of dividing your tasks up between those that took more or less than 10 minutes to complete. And those that took more than 10 minutes would be blocked out in your diary, Outlook at that time, or in Gmail, or wherever, and those for less than 10 minutes to complete would go into your task list. And it also involved changing a setting in Outlook that allowed the minimum time interval that you could block out in the calendar down to 10 minutes. Now, I want you to be aware that I'm taking an enormous personal risk here, sharing this IP with you, because I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement when I started working with them. Clearly, they felt that the sheer brilliance of this methodology had to be protected. So by sharing with you just now, sharing this amazing technique just now, I'm in breach of the non-disclosure agreement I signed, and I may well be run out of this town, tarred and feather. So please don't tell anyone, because the consultancy charged absolute fortunes for their unique, proven and brilliant techniques. And the corporate clients paid it, and it simply never ceases to amaze me what the corporate work will pay for. Corporate world will pay for. Yeah. So did it work? And what about all those 20,000 titles on Amazon? And what about my own inspired methodology? Does it work? Of course they do. Otherwise they wouldn't have published the books in the first place. The methods all work for the person who wrote the book. But that ain't you, is it? Here's another story from a few years ago. I work with a client called Darren. Darren used to beat himself up something shocking over his laziness and his procrastination and his addictions to distractions. It was actually before Facebook, but there were others. MySpace probably in those days. Anyway. He was, on Monday, he was so hard on himself. And one Monday, I really remember really clearly, Darren came into one of our regular sessions and he was in a particularly foul mood. And so I asked him about his weekend and he snapped, I didn't get that bloody tax return done again all weekend. I'm just so lazy. And when I asked him what had happened, he responded with, well, I spent all weekend cleaning up the garage, mowing the lawn, watching the rugby, and taking my girlfriend out to lunch instead. And to be honest, I've been procrastinating for weeks. Over this tax return, and even I'm making the decision to get it done this weekend, I still never even made a start on it. Wow, that's what his garage must have looked like. Thanks, Paul, for that message. That's great. You should. You didn't call that much yet, I think. Anyway, so that's that's what his garage probably looked like. And I said, "Wow, that sounds really bad." But look, did you enjoy yourself on Sunday and doing these other things? And he said, "Of course. I felt really good to get those things done. I mean, the garage really needed cleaning, and you couldn't get into the garage at all anymore, and lawn was like hip height, and the Wallabies won finally, which hasn't happened for a time, and my girlfriend really appreciated the attention and the time, but that's not the point. I didn't do my tax return after I made a commitment to do so. Yeah, look, I'm sure that's how romantic the lunch was. I'm sure you are disappointed. I said, I can understand that. But tell me, have you always done your tax return? And Darren pondered for a while and he responded, well, ever since I was 18 and my father taught me how to do it, and I always feel really good completing it myself and I'm getting some kind of refund. That's it. So have you ever been late putting the tax return in? And are you actually late now? Well, no, he replied. I mean, that'd defeat the purpose, wouldn't it? I mean, I'd get a penalty and that'd reduce the fun of getting a refund. So no, I've never ever been late, never ever in about 18 years, and I still have a couple of weeks to go now. But that's beside the point. I just wanted to get it in a couple of weeks early in case something came up. I must admit, I did laugh a little bit because through my smile, I responded, well, yeah, okay, of course, but maybe something came up. Maybe something actually came up. Maybe the lawn, the garage, the game, and your girlfriend, they were more important this weekend. Is there actually any real reasons, there can't be any real reason to assume that you won't get your tax return done in the next couple of weeks. Well, in case you're interested, Darren completed the tax return the next weekend, and he still had a week to spare in case something else came up. And look, I have now no doubt that now, a few years later, he'll still be completing his tax return and getting it in on time. Because he always has, and he probably always will. But these are a couple of lessons from Darren. And this is important stuff, I reckon. Not the least lesson is that doing your own tax return may be false economy compared against the joy of cleaning out a garage. But if you've got your worksheet, what would be really cool is if you could think about what your takeaway from that story is. And I'll summarize the points from my perspective in the meantime, and then we will see if somebody wants to share what their stuff was. You see, I think we all love to give ourselves a hard time. That's just, I think it's called the human condition. It's something that dates back to the Stone Age or something like that. It's, something dates back to the days when men ran away from saber-toothed tigers and women were dragged into their caves by their hair or something like that. I don't know. But what I do know is that all of us, and business owner more than anything, more than most, beat up on ourselves something fierce. Because business owners generally are just so ridiculously tough on themselves, it just never ceases to amaze me. And Darren had told himself that as a responsible person, he was to have the tax return completed some weeks early in case something came up. And every week it wasn't completed yet. He used it as an excuse to flagellate himself. Any comments at the moment? Any comments or thoughts or feedback? Bob in Newcastle wants to know if Darren got lucky that weekend. We won't answer that. Kerry, isn't being tough on yourself one of the reasons that things get done? I think that depends on how you look at it, Kerry. It's a great question, though, because see, there's no doubt that if you've been stoned since the Beatles, came back from India, and I'm showing my age there a little, then you've probably not managed to get much of a business or anything else off the ground. So yes, a certain amount of self-discipline is a useful attribute. It's a useful thing to have for business owners. But see, if you had been stoned since your adolescence, you probably wouldn't have started the business at all anyway. The fact that you have started the business or are in the process of doing so means that you have a certain amount of initiative and discipline and determination. And Darren had done his tax return on time for 19 years or 18, I think, and he was entitled to have a little bit more trust in himself by now. And he was entitled to trust himself to get it done on time, and he was entitled to trust his judgment when he decided to put his girlfriend first that weekend. Because he would undoubtedly get it on time, get it done on time, and by learning to trust himself, he could become so much calmer and happier, and he would have enjoyed the weekend more. And that's the point. If he wasn't going to do it that weekend because other stuff was more important, it's a real shame if he then walks around feeling annoyed and not happy with himself. And so you might say, yeah, but it's better to be distrustful and skeptical because that's the only way to stay sharp, the only way to be efficient and effective. That's how we do our best work, and that's where you'd be wrong. When you were in a frame of mind like Darren was, when you came to see me, you'll be least likely to do great work, least likely to be efficient, and most of all, least likely to be creative and resourceful. All characteristics to do with your brain science, neuroscience, all characteristics that you need to build your business. So doing what you can to allow yourself to feel happy and calm is going to lead to much greater outcomes all round. Any other questions? Liam, you said yes. Yes to what? Not sure what you meant. We might just move on for the moment. So let's move on, because we get to the interesting bit. I'm going to tell you something that is going to rock your world, something shocking, and I hope you're sitting down. Because you see, people only ever do things, this is my belief, and I know there's somebody on this call who takes issue with that, but still, I believe this. People only ever do anything in life for one or two reasons. One, the first reason we do anything in life is because we want to do this thing. We actually want to do it, or we're addicted to do it. I mean, so there's a part of us that wants to do it. Or the other reason we do things in life is because we do not want the consequences of not doing this thing. There you go. You didn't see that coming, I bet. Because so Darren wasn't a lazy, procrastinating, good for nothing at all. He wanted to do the garage. He wanted to deal with the grass. He wanted to watch the Wallabies win a game and rugby, and he wanted to spend time with his girlfriend. He wanted to do these things, and he didn't particularly want to do his tax return that weekend. And what is more important, the consequences of not doing his tax return that weekend were actually minimal. He still had 2 weeks up his sleeve. So Darren actually made the right decision at the time. He did the right thing. He did the responsible thing. Imagine if he'd been as disciplined as he wanted himself to be, and he'd done the tax return instead of the lawn and the garage, etc., he would potentially have a much better way to be down on himself. He would probably have really regretted not watching the game on Sunday because the Wallabies probably didn't win again for years. I don't know, I don't follow rugby, but still. And time management. So time management also always has to start with those two questions. How much do I want to do this thing, and how much do I want to avoid the consequences of not doing this thing? It's really that simple. As long as you do not have 100% clarity over those two questions, you'll always confuse the hell out of yourself, and you'll be exasperated with yourself for being such a procrastinator. And you'll always be looking around for another unique and proven time management method to turn you into an efficiency ninja. So please, by all means, go and read some books on how to manage your time better and become more efficient. There are some really great books out there. I'm a great fan, actually, of Stephen Covey's approach in the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. There's one of his chapters is talking about the urgent versus important quadrants, 4 quadrants of time management, urgent versus important. It's a really powerful way of thinking, and I often use it with my clients as well, but without that clarity that I just talked about, that we've just been talking about, no time management method is going to make one iota's bit of difference. Of course, there's more to being efficient and effective than just answering the 2 questions. It isn't the end of the matter. Just by answering the 2 questions, you aren't suddenly going to be procrastination-free forever, obviously, but it absolutely starts there. So what else is there? Glad you asked. Hang on, I just need a sip of tea before my mouth falls apart. What else is there? Well, there's actually another couple of really important considerations that you should become aware of in order to avoid procrastination and feeling down on yourself. And this is another story that I'm going to illustrate it with. It's a story about myself, and it took place a few years ago, as all my stories do. And so I've always done a lot of writing. I'm a fairly good writer. I think most of you downloaded my book, so I'm a writer. I was actually trained as a journalist in distant past before I became a builder in Holland. And I was a journalist for 5 or 6 years, old school training, cadetship, and all that kind of stuff. And I've come out of a journalist family, so I've done a fair bit of writing. I've had a bit of practice in schooling, and I actually enjoy writing. But for years, since when I stopped building in 2003, for years I wouldn't get much writing done at all because of endless procrastination. So what would happen, I would decide to write an article or whatever because, doing what I do now, I need to do lots of writing and stuff. And I decided to write an article, and then I could literally spend days procrastinating and wasting time and getting distracted by everything under the sun. And I used to beat myself like you wouldn't believe. But most of the time, if I really persisted, in the end, something would be written, and more often than not, I'd feel quite happy with the outcome. But because it took me so long, because it took me so much time to actually sit down and write, because I'd procrastinate so much before pen would actually go to paper or keyboard, whatever it was, I'd rarely end up writing stuff because I just didn't have that much time. Until one day I realized that the reason I procrastinated and wasted so much time when I decided to write something was that I didn't know what I was going to write. And because I didn't know what I was going to write, I couldn't sit down and I'd find different things to do instead of writing because I wouldn't know what to do. And when I realized this, I decided to change my approach. I just decided to trust myself that something had come out as long as I'd start writing. So now when I want to write, I simply sit down behind the keyboard and I start to write, whatever pops into my head. Stream of consciousness kind of stuff. Often I've absolutely no idea what I'm going to write, but I just start writing. I start writing about the weather or what I did on the weekend or the last book I read. I'll literally write nonsense if I have to. It doesn't matter. Once I start writing, I now know that it will come. And the amazing thing is that it always does. And all the nonsense or rubbish that I write at the beginning to get started, well, I just throw it out again. And so now I don't procrastinate anywhere near as much anymore, and I get a lot of writing done, and I'm getting better at writing, and I enjoy it, and it's good for my business, and it's really changed my life and my business. But this is the point of the story. Once we have absolute clarity over what we want to do and what consequences we want to avoid, we can often be waylaid by a few other hurdles that lead to major attacks of the procrastination disease. And they can be, one, we don't know how to actually do the thing we want to do. Or two, the task we've set ourselves is too big and the enormity of the task is so overwhelming and we just don't know where to start. Or three, we actually are unsure what this task involves. And just like the cartoon, and then we might just go and spend some time on the internet. And look at this. I mean, I just gave you three of those kind of reasons, but there's probably more of those kind of hurdles at least that lead to procrastination and being tempted by distractions. I see this all the time in my own case, and I see it with clients, and I was talking about exactly this with a client today. A client might decide in one of my sessions, right, I'm going to write a marketing plan. That's what I need to do. So now next week, I'm going to start creating a marketing plan. And then at our next session, the week after, nothing's happened about the marketing plan, and the client either makes all kinds of excuses or they beat up on themselves for being such a procrastinator. And this might go on for another couple of weeks until we really begin and uncover what's going on. And 9 times out of 10, what we find is that the client actually isn't clear how to go about writing a marketing plan, what the steps are, where to start. And when we spend some time getting clear about those steps the steps in the process of creating a marketing plan, and it might be, start with contents page or whatever, right? Do some free form map or whatever. once we start the process and we get clear about what the steps are, the whole procrastination issue just simply goes away, and people become quite efficient. As I said, there's many other variants of this mechanism, this dynamic. But 9 times out of 10, absolutely, if not 99 times out of 100, when you get attacked by the procrastination disease, it's a sign that there is something wrong with your clarity or with your understanding of the task or your confidence that you know how and where to start. And working with business owners for many years now, I actually think that the concept of laziness, the laziness concept simply does not exist for business owners. And it's no wonder that Homer never became a business owner. I really think it doesn't exist for business owners. Don't think business owners are ever lazy. Because if you were a lazy person, assuming such a thing even exists, but if you were a lazy person, you wouldn't have started the business to begin with. It just wouldn't have occurred to you. I think the phenomenon of procrastination and laziness is always a sign of something else. And once you've cleared away those various hurdles that I've talked about, things start falling into place again and life starts to flow again. So many problems that business owners face in the day-to-day running of their business are caused by not giving themselves enough space, allowing yourself more time and space to ask yourself the 2 big questions about clarity, or to investigate what's going on when you find yourself procrastinating. Truly is one of the big steps towards having more fun in business and building a business that sustains you for years to come and feeling great. I promise you. So let's have a look at some of the takeaways. On your worksheet, of course, there's some space to write down your top insights and learnings and questions, and also those of other people, if there are such. So ask yourself, what are the top 3 insights you've had since being on the webinar? What do you see now that you didn't see before? Or maybe what are your 3 questions? Or maybe there are things you disagree with that you'd like to take issue with me on. But I'd like you to focus on those and think in terms of top 3. It's always good in thinking in terms of top 3. What are the top 3 that you think you'd like to write down? So write them down, and I'll give you another minute's silence while I have some more tea. Not that I know what to do with my life if it wasn't for tea. I don't think I'd survive. So I'm going to sum up the insights that we've talked about so far. From my perspective. So the first are the principles. Time management, all management methods work for the person who designed the method, but then it's going to work for you. Second, all time management methods can be divided in 2 types: those that teach you how to manage your to-do lists, and those that teach you how to, or train you or whatever, in how to use your calendar. Third, the big one, avoiding. No, Liam, that's not my daughter. My daughter is 33, and she certainly didn't look like that when. No family resemblance. Scary person. Third, avoiding procrastination and becoming an efficiency ninja. Start with asking yourself, why do I want to do this? Or why do I want to avoid the consequences of not doing this thing? Because if you don't have clarity over those 2 questions, you cannot be efficient. You simply cannot be. And beating up on yourself does not make it easier for yourself to do great work. The opposite. Procrastination and getting distracted is nearly always, well, probably always, but nearly always, let's not be categorical, a sign of some other hurdle. And if you have started a business, you're not by nature a lazy person or a procrastinator. And to be efficient and effective as a business owner, you have to allow yourself space and time to reflect on your tasks and priorities. questions, comments at this point? Got a couple coming in. Let's see if there's any others. We'll just go to Lisa first. Lisa asked from Brisbane. Heard a lot of great things about this book called Getting Things Done by David Allen. If I do recommend it. It was one of the ones that was up on the screen before a bunch of different time management books. So look, I think getting things done is a solid method and it works well. I know it quite well. If your brain is the type of brain that likes working with big lists, then it's a great method. My brain doesn't like working with big lists, so it's not very good for me. So I like Stephen Covey's approach in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, of the 4 quadrants. And actually, there's a worksheet. There's a worksheet on the resources page, tiny.cc time page, with those 4 quadrants of time management on it. You can download with some questions that will help you work through them. But so have a look at it, download. But GTD, as it's referred to, getting things done, or as some friends of mine bastardize it and turned it into GSD, getting shit done. It's good. If it works for you, it's a fantastic method. And I know people that have worked with it, and there's also some iPhone and Android apps available for the GTD method, so it's good. But just think about that message I've been hammering this webinar all the way through. Don't think that any method, GTD or any other, is going to fix your problem unless you give yourself the space and the time I talked about before to get that clarity about the tasks ahead. Paul from Sydney, do I have an easy method of prioritizing a list of must-do tasks? Well, it depends on what you call easy. Thanks, Paul. You mentioned there must-do tasks. Actually, and I do this a lot with my clients. I say, okay, well, to get to this milestone that you need to achieve by next week, say, or by the end of the month, let's say, what are the must-haves that you need to achieve, that you need to complete to get to this milestone? And invariably, people start rattling off list, item after item, and it becomes an unrealistic list. It nearly always is, and that's the tool with which we beat up on ourselves. And that's because people mistake the difference between must and nice to have. A must-do list is a very different list to a list of things that would be nice to do. So I always ask people, okay, but does all of this actually have to be done? Take one of those and then take an example in there and say, well, this is what happens if this one isn't done? Does that actually mean you don't hit your milestone? Oh, well, no, but it should be done. Well, that's great, but if it's not must be done, then let's not write it down. Let's just only focus on the things that are must, not that are critical. Meaning, if you do not do this, you don't hit your milestone. And then it nearly always comes down to just a few things. And then, so if you down to the absolute bare minimum critical, then that suddenly tends to take a lot of weight off people's shoulders. I find we load ourselves up with so many things, too many things. I hope that answers your question, Paul. If not, let me know. Ken, Sydney. I still use the juggling method. Well, yeah, thanks, Ken. Look, I don't anymore. I did for a few years, but this is the other thing that demonstrates about time management, because it outlived its usefulness. I just simply don't need it anymore. Not that I don't procrastinate or get distracted. Facebook is a terrible affliction, and the constant barrage of email can screw my days up enormously. But And sometimes I'm not just not in the mood to ask myself that questions about, those clarity questions. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I just want to fiddle, actually. And so this is one of these things. You go, okay, well, this is back to those questions, what you want to do and what we want to avoid. If there isn't a deadline that I must hit, and there is nothing I particularly want to do, I sometimes can want to fiddle a while. And the other thing is, for me, I mean, I do a lot of my time is taken up with developing new ideas to market myself and writing, and that takes a lot of thinking time. So sometimes it can look as if I'm wasting time, but really I'm just mulling things over, letting things bubble away in my brain. But sometimes I really need to get certain things done, right? And I can't allow myself to be distracted by email or Facebook or whatever else. And what I do then is I set my laptop up on a different table, and I just open Microsoft Word or something like that, and I simply don't allow myself to open Facebook on my laptop or my email. And if I really need to check my email, I don't even open it on the laptop. I just look at it on my phone, and it's amazing how much I can sometimes get done that way. But it only happens when I have absolute clarity over those two questions about what I want to do. Yeah. So. The other thing I did a few years ago, I swore I'd never look at Twitter again. Twitter just drove me completely insane. And one day I just uninstalled it from my computers, and I just don't go there anymore. Actually, I pay a marketing assistant in the Philippines to do tweeting for me. But yeah, it was a temptation that I just couldn't resist, and I had to support myself, because no matter how nasty I got with myself, I couldn't resist. Too much information, but I'd get up in the middle of the night sometimes to go to the toilet, and then I'd go, oh, let's have a quick look if somebody's tweeted anything that I need to see. It was just sort of starting a 12-step program for Twitter addicts, TA, Twitter Anonymous or something. Anyway, let's move on. Remember, before I wanted to make an offer to you, an offer to make it as easy as possible to take a next step forward out of this overwhelm and feeling daunted, and about that key business development priorities, that's whatever it is that is most challenging, your most pressing issue, because I want to help people out of overwhelm. That's what I do. So have another look at that most pressing issue of yours that you wrote down. Is that still your most pressing issue, or has something come up for you by now? Because here's the deal. I want to help you with that most pressing issue. I want to help you find some simple, effective steps forward in relation to that big, challenging issue. And I've created my offer for you is this. This is what you're going to get. You're going to get a 7-page business health check report. You get to do an online health check, and you get a 7-page report out of that. You get a copy of one of my books, one of the 10 Truths books in hard copy. You get to sit down with me for an hour and a quarter via Skype or face-to-face if you want to come to Elizabeth Bay, and gain clarity and focus about where you are in relation to this issue and where you want to get to in relation to this issue. And you'll walk away with real clarity and insight and practical steps forward that you can implement straight away. And all you have to do to get started, to take up that offer, is to make a $100 donation to the Wayside Chapel in Sydney. The Wayside Chapel in Sydney is my favourite charity. And yeah, all you have to do is make a $100 donation to it, and there'll be a link. I'll send the link out. Well, actually, I might even type the link in here in a moment, where you can make that donation, and it's going to be the most fun and effective charity donation you've ever made in your life. And it's on your worksheets as well. So back to the grind. I'll just remind you of the principles again. All time management methods work for the person who designed it. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work for you. And they can all be divided in 2 types: those that teach you how to manage your to-do lists, and those that teach you how to use your calendar. Avoiding procrastination and becoming an efficiency ninja starts with asking you, and that's that back about that question of yours, Paul, about the prioritizing of the list. Yeah, I hope I answered it usefully for you, but the more I think about that, it's all about that we overload the list. We put too much on the list. So you get to the end of the day and you've only done part of the list and you feel bad because there's this whole bunch of list still needs to be done, or you think it needs to be done. And so you start the next day with a big overwhelming list, and it's because we just put too much on it. So anyway, the big question to ask yourself is, why do I want to do this thing? Do I want to do this thing? Do I actually want to do this thing? Or do I want to avoid the consequences of not doing this thing? Do I want to do? Is it important enough for me not to avoid the consequences of not doing it? You can't be efficient unless you have clarity over those two answers. You simply can't. And beating up on yourself doesn't make it any easier to do great work. Quite the opposite. And it's usually procrastination is usually a sign of some other hurdle. And if you started a business, you are not by nature a lazy person. You simply can't be. The two don't exist at the same time. And to be efficient and effective, you have to give yourself as a business owner space and time to reflect on your tasks and priorities. So now we're going to get into action. No, that's the one. Oh, we've already gone past that one. That's where we're going. Action. Nothing's going to change until we take action. So I've given you the resources on there's some resources on the resources page, which is at the top of your chat window. And this is what I want you to do. First, set some time aside over the next few days to be able to get into this. Be sure you do this. If you do not set time aside to do something with what you've learned and the information I've given you today in the next few days, then coming on this webinar has been a waste of your time. Because if you don't do anything, nothing changes. So set time aside. The only thing that ultimately makes any difference to anything in life is the actions you take. So here is a few simple actions I'd encourage you to take. And they're also on your worksheet. Go to that resources page, tiny.cc/time page. Spend some time looking over some of those resources, like the 4 quadrants that I mentioned before. Read that article, the Forbes article, Time Management for the Rest of Us. It's a great article. And then on a blank piece of paper, do this. Draw a horizontal scale from 0 to 10. And label it your Master of Time Management scale. And 10 on this scale is that you're so efficient that they should write a book about you. And somebody on this call is already, isn't he? Yes. So efficient that they're going to write a book on you, and 0 is the opposite. What number would you give yourself on that scale? Then ask yourself the question, what do I need to do? What action do I need to take this coming week to move one small increment up the scale, up my own scale? What specific action must I take to move one small increment, say from 6.1 to 6.2? Get your diary out and book that specific action or actions in your diary. And at the same time, next week, ask yourself the same question again. And that's it for today. Please go and take those 4 actions. They'll not take much time at all, but taking the time to do them means you will be taking the first step to building a business that sustains you for years. So do it, please. And don't forget the special offer. The donation, the link to make the donation is actually I'll type it, as I said, I'll type it in here now. HTTP my site chat. That's the link you go to and just click on the donations button. And so just go ahead and do it. It'll be the best $100 you've ever donated to anything or anyone, I can assure you. And that's the screen with the offer again. The business health check and report, copy of one of the books, one-on-one coaching session via Skype or in Elizabeth Bay, and clarity, focus, next steps. You'll get a mountain of valuable insights, learning, and clarity out of the whole offer, I promise you. And the website's going to love you too. Any other questions? Final questions? Because if you take nothing else away from this webinar, ask yourself this question today: how can I make this coming week a little more efficient? Or better still, actually, ask yourself this question: how can I, in this coming week, feel a little better than I have about how I manage my time? I think you'll be surprised about the impact it will have on your business, especially if you do this question, ask that question often. So we are at the end of our webinar. Any final questions? I'll be online for a few more minutes. I'm just going to turn the recording off. Thank you for being here. And feel free to email me, of course, at roland@newperspectives.com.au with any questions. And now we're turning the email